Welcome to Learn, Chat, Share, the podcast where knowledge meets conversation, hosted by Daniel Wathen. Okay, so for those that are watching, this is my first video podcast recording. Well, apologies, we're very casual because I'm just stringing this together. So we're actually recording on a computer and on a phone. We're mic'd up, so hopefully this is working.
Yes.
And Erin, my friend Erin, is graciously got pulled into this. She cares about this topic, so that is important, and she's an expert in her field, and we're gonna dive right in. So thanks for joining, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to do this new adventure with you.
Yes. So before we get into it's a heavy topic, but it's, I think, very important for anyone that might be listening or watching. I have an 8-year-old. Erin has a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And so parenting in the digital world is very different for me to navigate because as a child, I didn't have any electronics. I think we had 4 channels when I was growing up,
or possibly before.
At eight, it was like 4 or 5 channels.
Atari.
Yes, Atari was a thing, and that was cool. But that was also something that we did with our parents.
I don't know if I did, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like they would set it up, and now I have my kids set things up.
Exactly. And so what we're going to do is dive into mental health, specifically for teenagers, but we'll probably cross a variety of topics in and throughout that. And then let everyone know what you do, because I called you an expert. In my mind, you are.
Supposedly, yes, I am an expert in my field. I always get nervous about that. But I'm a licensed mental health professional in a high school. And so I am a therapist, and currently I'm a marriage and family therapist intern, state intern. That's been a little bit long happening. And I was an educator for over 20 years. I taught secondary English or English language arts is what you would call that.
Great. And I think previous to your current role, you were also within the detention system.
I was. For
teenagers? Yes.
Teens.
Yes.
Yeah, so it actually was elementary, could possibly, but for the most part it was around 5th or 6th grade through seniors. Once they're 18, they get taken to a different population. So yeah, I worked in the juvenile detention.
Yes. Okay, cool. So for me, very well rounded. Bad actors all the way to sort of a current sort of population of great students, more challenged students, etc. And so what got me on this topic was there's been a lot of conversation in the news around teenage mental health. And then you got me keyed on this book by Jonathan Haidt. It was written last year or published last year, and it's called The Anxious Generation, The Great Rewiring.
Yes.
And I burned through the book, so I'm going to come with a bunch of knowledge that I'm still processing. Yeah. So some of this will be her telling me I'm probably off on a few of my comments or opinions, which is great. That's what learning is all about. And that's what we care about here at Learn, Chat, Share. So I learned, we're going to chat. She's the expert on a few of these things, and we're going to dive right into mental health. So my first question, what do you think the mental health state is of our high schoolers?
Okay, this is a great question. And our high schoolers, North America, specifically, right, anecdotally, I would say our kids have so much language with mental health that they're very interested, but I would say they have a huge increase in anxiety.
So are they self-diagnosing?
In my experience, yes.
Okay.
I literally just talked to a person today, and I heard a lot of good language where they have diagnosed or they have been diagnosed. They have more language than I ever did until recently, until I decided to become a mental health professional. And this teenager is telling me, this is what happens with ADHD. This is what happens with anxiety. I may have complex, a PTSD, which is not even in the DSM yet. So they have a wealth of knowledge, but it's almost a little scary because it's almost like Google MD, because how are you diagnosing yourself?
Now, is this a like they? You don't have to talk about the names, obviously. We're not going to. But like, is this someone who is in active therapy, may have received some information on some potential characteristics of whatever they're feeling, and then may have gone to Google or
I find,
WebMD or what have you, and like
yeah.
supplemented?
I find both. I find that some people do have access to mental health where they're able to go to a therapist and they also do the Google thing. And they're like, well, my therapist is okay, but I think I have this. Or they do listen to their therapist and their therapist have given them a lot of great information. Or they've never been to therapy, but they have accessed a lot of the information that's online and it very well, but also we don't know if that's true. It's so tough to diagnose an adolescent. They're still a child, right? And so as a person who diagnoses, you try not to diagnose without ruling everything out, and you can't diagnose certain things until they're 18. So that might be another thing too. Like a teenager doesn't have a diagnosis they believe they have. And they're like, but I think I have this. So when I'm 18,
But backing up, they're feeling something
they are.
and they can't do whatever they think is normal with it,
Yeah.
right? And so they're either on a therapy track or on a research track, and then they come to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And then I meet them. Absolutely. Because I work in a school. And so they might come to me dysregulated and they're like, I just need to talk. Because my purpose in the school, from my understanding, is one, to give resources, two, to offer the ability to tell the whole school, you know, like, here is what mental health is. These are good things that you can do for yourself to regulate yourself when you feel dysregulated. But then also on a personal level, they can come to me for a short period of time and say, hey, I need to talk about this thing. And so, oh, I got sidetracked. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I feel like they have so much more information now than they ever have before. And a lot of the kids come to me with heightened anxiety and possibly heightened depression, but it's often more anxiety.
I mean, I'm almost giving away the plot to the story. Do you think it's the phones? No, we'll just let the cat out of the bag. So I think part of the premise of the anxious generation, the Great Rewiring, is that there is a difference between how kids are growing up today. These kids were born in the early 2000s, and in 2010, 2012, I don't have my iPhone, it's actually recording this, but there's electronics everywhere, right?
Yes.
So they have that accessibility to all of this information,
Yeah.
and
We don't read as much as we used to in the traditional sense, but we're bigger readers than we've ever been, and this definitely includes the younger generation. And so they're reading anything that they can get their hands on that's of interest.
yes.
Yeah, and so this happened, like you were saying.
So they're ingesting information.
They're
It's not
ingesting-
really reading per se.
It is. That's up for debate.
Yes.
And I don't want to, diss my younger generation and say it's not reading. It's not reading like you and I do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's different.
Well, even now I've transitioned to doing audiobooks because I can do something else while I'm,
Right?
doing that.
It's the great American dream.
Let's
do it all together.
Let's walk miles and also, read. But I found that it's not really great reading. I have to get the book at some point, usually if I have an interest level.
Yes, I do the same thing. Walk and read and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I really love the book and I want to dig deeper, I get the book and then I read it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So they're ingesting a lot of information.
So much.
Some of that information can be good for them.
Yeah.
A lot of that information is not good for them.
Yeah.
And the premise of the book is that in a scenario where we as parents are over-parenting our children.
Yeah.
So, okay, there's a concept within the book about how parenting now is much more helicopter parenting.
That's exactly what I was going to. I was like the helicopter parenting.
Yes, there's fear about a child's safety. There's fear that we need to be a part of every moment of their learning journey. There's, I'd say fear, but it's become social norm for us to be a part of our child's upbringing at every moment that we can.
At every moment. And then obviously, so you and I are Gen X, right?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I'll claim that,
Today,
yes.
I am. So if...
I'm a little older than that.
Not a
Let's
lot.
not talk about age.
Let's not talk about it. But if I think about it, in my generation that was growing up, you and I talked about
Yes.
don't come home until the lights turn on.
Correct.
Right? Our generation, my parents wouldn't have known. They would ask for my report card, but they wouldn't know what's going on in my daily life. And I think that generation was like, maybe that wasn't quite the best parenting, or that wouldn't be the way I want to parent my children. There were some things I missed out on, or some connection that I thought I should have with my older generation. And so I think that's part of it too, where you've got this helicopter parenting because I need to be involved. No one was involved with me. Every generation does do that.
Well, it was normal when I was growing.
Yeah.
I think I may have the ages wrong. Sorry, Mom, I might have that. But I swear at 6th grade, I went home by myself. I got home before my siblings.
Okay.
And I had a key.
Yeah, latchkey.
And I just opened the door and then went about the day and did my chores and my homework and
And you
watched
knew.
soap operas and
Yes.
and then greeted my siblings when they arrived
And
and then good to go, right?
Yes.
For a period of time, my sister and I had the same. She was a year behind me, so she was in the 5th grade when I was in the 6th grade, so I had that year alone, right?
Yes.
Now, a 6th grader, would you let them go home and enter their home by themselves?
I don't know. My middle sister, when my daughter was 12, she's 16 now, said, hey, can she babysit Luke? And I'm like, oh, babysit? She goes, Erin, she's 12. I mean, at 9, I was running my house. So taking care of my sisters.
I think we all got that
We all
babysitting
got
credential
that,
or whatever at
but
11
I had
or
to check myself. And she could definitely do that.
yeah. In preparation for this, we were chatting about, some of the things that we wanted to talk about. And one of the things was I let my kid go to the park.
Yes.
The park is not even a quarter mile away inside a gated community.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fake gated community. It's just, but still, like,
It's still gated. But
I'm like, yes, go.
Yes, go.
And the whole entire time, I'm like, okay, how long has he been gone? Should I like do a checkup? And is there some gardening I need to do in the front yard? Like this.
The little park by my development is not gated, but the little park area that Jace would ask to go to last year at the age of 9-ish, 9.5. I can see it from my front door.
You can throw a baseball to this park
and I was like, so I said, okay, but I'd go check, and no one was checking on me. I literally remember 5 years old, 6 years old. I'm running around at not a gated community with all of the kids. We're playing football. We're climbing trees. I hurt myself I don't know how many times, and no one was checking on me.
Yeah, a core fundamental of this book is risky play.
Yes, risky play.
Risky play.
Yes.
And how...
And we don't give it to our kids today.
And because we haven't gotten it, fast forward, teenage years, right? They have all this anxiety.
Yes.
Because their decision-making faculty is gone, and they may be experiencing things alone now that we probably handled when we were 7 years old. And now fast forward, they're 16, and there could be a simple bullying scenario that they can't handle. There could be a complex bullying situation online that they certainly, we as an adult couldn't handle. So free play. And one of the things that you're going to get from this is primarily how, and I don't have an answer, and we'll get to it in a couple minutes, how we can insert that with our younger children and feel okay, not have any fear that someone's going to call the police on us,
that's the other aspect of the fear, right? Is that our society now is watching each other, and
sorry, I'm growling.
And should have eaten the tacos
that
first.
totally hit the mic.
But we're being judged by our neighbors, where before our neighbors would help us parent. Actually, I mean, my father.
Well, can I?
Yes.
I disagree. I think we're not judged by our neighbors. I don't know my neighbors.
I see what you're saying.
I think we
neighbors
think
as in people in our community.
Yeah, I think we think our neighbors are judging us.
Yeah.
We have fundamental problems. Like, I don't want my kid outside riding his bike because the people are driving too fast, and I don't think that they're watching.
They're not.
And
I mean, I don't think
I'm
they are.
afraid that they're not watching.
I am terrified that they're not watching. Yeah.
But are they or are they not?
I don't know.
And like, would they slow down if more kids were actually outside riding their bikes and playing? I think in my neighborhood, it's silent. They're all inside.
Yeah.
And
There's this
and you know why? Because they're on.
Oh yeah,
on
my
devices.
son was. Wait, what's today? Thursday. Yeah, my son was on video games when I left to come here. Yeah, he had gotten home, did his homework, supposedly. That's what him and his dad said. And then he's playing Fortnite. I said, "Can you give me a hug? Make him get up out of the chair, give me a hug." And I'm like, "I'll be back." But yeah, they're inside. He's inside.
We want them there, though.
I know. Because it freaks me out.
It's like this vicious
I
circle,
know.
right?
I don't want him just staring at that screen, but then I'm terrified to let him go out alone. But
Yeah, and I have posed this question to a large friend group because I get annoyed when they're all playing inside, right? And they're like between 4 and 9, and when there's 6 to 8 of those kids, they're loud. And so I asked all of my mom group friends and the dads, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to ask a question. I just want your initial reaction." I said, "What would it take for us to just tell them to go out front and just get lost?" And this is in a guard-gated community. Everyone shut down.
they all got quiet.
They all were like, "No, we can't do that." I'm like, "Well, why?"
Well, why?
And you had a cop. I mean, we have a cops and lawyer friends and chef, but they all had that immediate visceral reaction shut down.
Okay.
And I go, "Why was it good for you and not good enough for your kids?" And I go, "I'm petrified to do it myself, but if you all agreed to it, why can't we just do it?" I mean, they're a pack. Right?
Yes.
There's nothing that's going to go on without someone telling on someone else,
When you said that, immediately my body went, "But there's danger."
But there isn't.
But there's danger. But there is. But there isn't, right?
But is it a made up danger? Like that's
I don't think it's made up.
I'm gonna get a lot of comments about this, and I think part of why I want this podcast is the devil's advocate of this whole entire thing.
So let me be the devil's advocate, right? So my mom, God rest her soul, she would take us to this strip mall, right? So me and my cousin Gabriella, I remember this vividly because it was so terrifying. Right? So mom, there's a Hancock store, which is where she would get all of her stuff to make our Halloween costumes. She sewed all the time, so it's a fabric store where I live. And then the Hallmark, which is a card store, a greeting card store, was right next door, and they had the cutest little things that they used to that you put like on cupcakes or cakes, right? So Gab and I were like, "Hey mom, can we go?" "Yeah, go." She's in the fabric store. She cannot see us. We are in a completely different store, but same strip mall. And Jessie wasn't even born. So, or maybe, I was maybe 5, maybe. And there was this big person, a man, walked in, and he was breathing. It was visceral. I don't want to get too much into it. But now, as an adult looking back, that man could have grabbed us, and he wanted to. And I'm 100% sure. And so I know that stuff can happen, right? For whatever reason, Gab and I got out of there immediately. Right? And I know that stuff could happen.
Yes.
And I think those moments where it's like, well, nobody's around, so I will always be around.
Well,
but
and I think
can't always be around your child.
And everything was publicized when we were growing up, right? Amber Alerts were created, and like everything was on the news, but the fact of the matter is that type of crime has dropped significantly.
It has because, right? Think about it back then. There was nothing around.
All of that crime has moved online.
Yes.
And we are now giving our 13-year-olds or our 10-year-olds access to all those predators.
I'm telling you this, and I'm like, I would never leave my child alone. Be everywhere, and then yet I give my child at 10 years old a phone access.
And he literally, I'm telling you this just to scare you, but he's used that phone to look at porn at 10 years old.
Oh Jesus.
1,000%, because that's 50% of the search history on boys is pornography.
I'm going home tonight.
And it's, I guess, the weird fact in the book, it's like 60% of the content online, right? Yeah. and we're
Well, and
not
that's the other
monitoring
thing.
any of it.
And also what I've noticed too is the content comes to them too. So not
And by the
only are
way,
they looking it
if
up.
he ever watches this, I'm not accusing him. It's just
Well,
like
I love you, JC.
the trend for boys.
No, you're right. Statistically, this is
Yes.
what is happening, and absolutely. But I also think that the content is finding them as well. Yeah,
100%, because the
it's
algorithms are geared to hook them.
yeah. And then they're like, "What's that?" And then choo 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 choo.
I
And
say
then
algorithms because I am posting all of this content on these social media sites and I don't want them to flag me. But
yes,
they are out, like, and they have unfettered access,
yes,
and legally we or legislation has allowed it to happen, and it's been happening for upwards of 12 years. And with it comes a whole host of problems. We retreat into our houses. We give a benefit to the child, which is a smartphone that can access anything. We're not monitoring it.
I mean, we think we are, but are we?
Well, and I'm not saying all people are not monitoring. I'm sure there are some
There are
folks,
some diligent parents out there,
and
yes,
yeah,
there are.
wonderful. But you also come up against the wall of like, I don't have X, my friends have X, and then everything ends up being a war with your child through the teenage years. I'm only thinking of this in advance of my child being a teenager. I'm sure it'll come up because he's
Well,
a
Jason's
negotiator.
not even a teenager, and
I'm sure he's negotiating.
yeah, little man, he should be a lawyer.
Well, is it like the fifth graders could take over the world, or what? Some fact like that. I'm misquoting it. But the thing is, you fast forward, they're in your office because they can't handle all of those teenagers that you're helping today, right? Yeah. How will they be handling it 10 years from now?
Well,
Are they at like 10 years? Is it, what's that term? It's not acute, it's chronic anxiety from teenager to 30-year-old. They're just medicated?
So I have to be careful. Yeah, like.
Well, I'm not. It's just a general statement. Like, you have a group of human beings that can't handle their lives because we took all the play away from them in their super formative years.
You might even see early 20s not thriving, right? So that's very possible.
Yes.
Early 20s right now, they may be having a hard time with having a hard time.
They're having a hard time having a hard time?
Yeah. Like, well, what did I hear from maybe some late teens or some early 20s?
Oh, they're having a hard time having a hard time.
Yeah.
Because they haven't felt anything earlier?
Yes. Like, they're like, well, it didn't work out, or I see devastation coming for our future, or the housing market is so crazy, I could never own a home, so what's the point? Or I wanted to be A, but that didn't work out, and so now I don't even know what plan B is. And so I just give up. And then also, so like there's this, the word would be resilient, but it's almost like the resiliency is hiding somewhere, and they're having a hard time taking a look at.
Yeah, it's that failure to launch.
It's the failure to launch, and you might be seeing that in the early 20s right now.
Well, yes, in this book, in Japan, I forget the name of it, and we'll put it in the notes. It's like Kimmy Curry, or there's a name for men. I'll call them men, but they're probably just older boys.
Yeah.
So from 20 to 27 that live in their rooms.
Yes.
Online, and that's all they do.
And that's not just in Japan.
Right. I think they use this as an example.
Yes, as an example.
But I have a lot of friends that have kids, young adults, between 18 and 27.
Yeah.
And they are either unemployed, not in school, living at home, have come back home after a year of trying, and always they weren't ready. They had a hard time coping. They think that they have to have their whole entire life planned.
Yes.
At their age.
Absolutely.
And risk averse.
Yes.
Mistake averse.
Yes.
Error averse.
Yes.
Like, go down one track, backtrack averse.
Yeah.
Like, they're scared of everything.
100%. The amount of shame that takes over and just shuts everything down, like, that's a coping mechanism, but it's not helpful as an adult, right? However, that is what
And
I
is it
see.
because we didn't let them climb trees when they were 7?
I think that's part of it. I mean, you know, my own experience, my own opinion is,
Because they were going to
did
fall?
yes,
Let them fall,
did we allow, because I mean, to be honest, I mean, I was allowed to fall and no one knew I fell. And not that I'm doing amazing here, but my astonishment at a early 20s or, you know, the teen saying they were mean to me and their whole day stops. Takes me a moment to be like, well, okay, that's what happened. And so I'm like,
Well, and it kind of probably feels like you're talking to a 6 or 7 year old to some extent with adult tendencies.
And I love that you brought that up, because ironically, I'm talking to verbally very mature people. They have the vocabulary, the ability to talk about mental health and how consequences and boundaries, and they have the information. But the feeling of the information, the use of the information feels younger.
Yes.
Right? It feels like they have the information, they've consumed the information, but the use of it is beyond them. Or the thing that I worry about most, that I've seen consistently as a pattern as a mental health professional, is cutoff. Where the misuse of what a boundary is, of, well, you did this to me, so for my mental health, I'm sorry, Daniel, we can't be friends anymore because you didn't listen to me when I said I don't eat tacos.
They're weaponizing psychological
boundaries.
terminology.
And that's pretty intense. But yeah,
Some of it.
I think they're using it, they're trying to use it well. But like you said, that
But
maturity
are their
level,
parents doing it too? Like, are they just like, are they
That's a great
mimicking
Yeah.
I mean, the level, I mean, as a pastime, I read things about psychology.
Yeah.
That's my interest. I probably should
Yeah.
go to school for it.
love
But I
it.
think there's a lot of people, I mean, you know, a couple years ago, narcissism was the word
yeah.
of the moment. And then
And everybody was narcissistic, and just so you know, that's not possible. It's a certain percentage. A lot of humans can have narcissistic qualities. We can see generationally that
Yes.
a group of people could be a narcissistic approach,
yes.
but not everybody can have
Yeah.
narcissism.
Gaslighting as a terminology.
Yes.
And
And gaslighting is a real thing, 100%. But
people claim their ADD as a badge of honor or
Yes.
something
Yeah.
because, you know, they can't focus on anything. And
Yes.
so it's just ADD when
or when they're
and-
overly just clean and neat, they'll say they're
OCD.
which is a diminishing of the actual obsessive compulsive disorder.
But 25 years ago, none of those terms were even.
No,
You
they
had to be a
weren't pop
professional.
culture.
Yes.
100%.
I mean, I think CPS would be called
If they saw.
what happened to me as a child, which was considered normal if that happened to my child. I used my head to block myself in like literally fall out of a tree, probably landed on my head. You know, I have so many stitches, audience, like everywhere, right? And it became a family joke that, you know, if I got hit in the head, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. But I was just clumsy in that regard. But like one of these is like, okay, my friend across the street, we had a sleepover. They had their tile floor buffed out like the week before. It's heaven for kids. Socks, pajamas, blankets.
You betcha. I got a couple concussions that way.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I literally slammed into a door jamb. Blood everywhere.
But whose fault was that also?
Mine.
What are you doing?
But mine. But today,
yeah.
Why did you let those kids do that?
Why did you let those kids do that? And I think that's what I meant by the neighbor thing. And not necessarily my neighbor. I actually do know my neighbors and I love them. But
I mean, I don't know. Maybe my parents lit into the neighbor friend or whatever. I didn't ever see it because they blamed me, and they should have. It was my fault, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it was. It's kind of very interesting where today there would be some litigation, police are called, and you know, it'd be like get all out of hand when it's a simple thing that I lived through, and you know what, I taught my kid not to do it.
Well, and
but he should like, I don't want him to break a bone, but he needs to get hurt. He needs to know what his own personal boundaries are. Does it scare me half witless? Yes.
I need to know my own boundaries. I'm not going to know my own boundaries until I go out into the world and I have that risk-taking behavior within limits, within the idea that I do have a safe haven. I have a foundation. When I look back, can I see my parents metaphorically? Are they there? Can I move forward? Because the better the foundation, the idea that my parents are there when I turn to them, the idea that I become more autonomous.
Yes.
But if I am never given the opportunity to move away from my parents.
Well, and then you go to college.
Yes. Yeah.
Could you imagine how flippin' petrified an 18 and a half, 19-year-old person is?
Yeah.
If they travel more than 100 miles and live in a dorm with other foreign human beings who are just as petrified as they are. I mean, they're going to go down one of two roads.
One of two roads.
They're going to love it or they're going to completely retreat from it.
Right. I don't think all parents are doing this. You know, like I do know of instances where teens are allowed to go as just a group of teens, maybe for like a break of some kind, a fall break, a spring break, and they'll all get an Airbnb. And I have heard that. And so I'm like, okay, well, it scares the crap out of me.
Well, you know what's happening in that Airbnb. Everything.
But they're given the opportunity to go out and do
Well,
this.
it's like prom.
Yes.
A complete tangent. So for all those parents you don't know, prom, they go to, because our friend Valerie, I chaperoned.
Oh, yeah.
They arrive.
Yes.
They check in. It's kind of like a prom experience.
Yes.
They get all the photos taken. They announce the royal people. And then it's mass exodus. Well, where we live. And it's like straight to the hotels and limos here. And,
Yeah, where we live, the hotel thing is a big deal.
Yes.
Right? Because, Las Vegas. But, get a hotel or something for prom, party bus, Yeah, teenagers are going to be teenagers. But also, if you and I are talking about foundationally, as we allow our children to grow, a certain generation, I think so. I think I helicoptered my daughter. I'm so sorry, Abby. I mean, there were moments where I was like, okay. But there are moments where I tried to let go. And now I wonder, am I letting go too much with the phone, with my son?
I think we should, let's talk about that now. Like, how do we I can't backtrack right now. So I'm like on the precipice of all of this.
Right, so your son has an iPad.
He has an iPad. It has parental controls on it, meaning he can only watch it for an hour. He has to ask for permission. When he gets bored with that, he goes out and plays.
I love it.
He's got Lego. He's got a bunch that he can do here. It's YouTube Kids. When there are things I don't like, he just doesn't know that I go onto his iPad and unsubscribe from things. And I can hear I can hear the algorithm, so it's mostly educational. There's some fun stuff in there. And he doesn't have full access. He doesn't, and he can get into at my house. He's in split homes. There are different rules at the different house. Yeah. There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, I actually have experienced that with my daughter. My daughter split homes, and then my son we're in the same home. And so I've experienced both sides of it.
Well, you're also in a predicament where you have a 16-year-old living with a 10-year-old. And so there's got to be sibling fairness, I'm sure, at some point, right?
That was so, and when you talk about that as a blended family, so my partner and I, we both had children before we got together, right? So he had 2 kids, I had 1. And so, at the moment, so at any given time, there used to be 4 kids together, right? And so Jenna, the oldest one, she is 19 now. Let me make sure I get this right. About to be 20. And then Avalana is the 16-year-old. And then, 19, 16, 15-year-old boy. And then we have Jace, who is the 10-year-old, the baby, right? And so he saw all 3 of these people have technology, phones, and constantly on them. And my partner and I have wildly different views of how much technology we should use. And so he sees his older siblings using technology just like water. And he's like, when do I get mine? When do I get mine? The boy has been asking for a phone since he was 3. Yeah, when do I get mine?
Well, yeah. Oliver,
they get to do this. They get to do this. Da, 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 da.
Oliver's 8. He's been asking, and he also thinks he's getting a Tesla when he turns 16, or a truck, or I'm not allowed to move because he's going to inherit my house.
I love your house.
He's got all kinds of.
He's got great ideas.
He's got great ideas.
He's got great taste, just like you.
But I've For whatever reason, I think partly because
Mm-hmm.
just because I'm an older parent and I grew up differently, something in the core of me was like resistant. And so I had that kind of natural reaction. After reading this book, forget it.
Right? It made
Forget
you
it.
go, oh my heavens, the train wreck. Yes.
And there's hurdles, right?
Yeah.
So like within is some guidance on like you can so bring the risky play in for your kids no
Yeah.
matter how young they are. At 6, you need to give them some autonomy, so they need to be able to go do things on behalf of the family. So if you live in a town where they can just walk down the street to go to the store to pick something up,
Yeah.
and here I would say go into the convenience store and buy something. You'd have to have cash or something, but
Yeah.
but that's kind of monitored. But here that would be
Like we
considered.
drive up to the convenience store and it's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Hey,
you
go
can
in there and go
in
get
there.
X, Y, Z, so that they
Oh
can
my God,
problem
my heart
solve.
just went to my stomach when I
Right,
thought
like,
about that.
and that's still monitored, right?
So
Because
to
we live in a
be-
big city, so
Yeah, I was
you got to
gonna
figure
say,
out like what the
to
normal
be
will be.
fair, we live in a big city, or some would say that we're a small city, but we live in a city, right?
Yes.
We have urban living, and it would be different if like you live in a small town. Like the town that my grandma used to live in, it was like one road in Nebraska, right?
Mhm.
And so if I lived in a town like that, could I say at 6 or 7, Jace, go get me some milk, something for the family?
You totally could because the whole town would know
The whole
Jace.
town would know Jace.
Yeah, and if he's acting up or whatever, they're going to
Yeah.
give you a call.
So to generally say that this is, true for every town is not true.
Yeah, and
Or
not every city either. So the point is to give some independence, and you have to
yes.
figure out how to
Yeah.
do that. At 8, that's when you can start to have them go out. Well, that's the age where we were like, get out of the house, go play.
I think I was younger, to be
And
honest.
but definitely by
Yeah.
8 it was happening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like we weren't even like, this is metaphorically, right? Not allowed in the house. Like it was
No,
not
you're
even
not allowed
fun.
in the house.
It wasn't fun to be in the house,
That's
right?
true.
It was that was a place for like,
Listen, I got my water from
family
my hot hose.
time, and like we were at that park as fast as we could. Like the amount of tetherball that I played probably
I
as a
love
kid,
tetherball.
like a monster tetherball player, right? So
I
you
don't even know if my son knows tether. My daughter knows tetherball, but I don't know if my son
like
knows it.
all the scarring,
All the scarring. I was really good at that.
So, and maybe that was a Las Vegas thing because you grew up here too. So
Yes.
it was like big here. Foursquare. I don't even know if they know what that is.
Oh, Foursquare.
Like,
good at that.
dodgeball. I mean, I think they know what
Hated
dodgeball is.
dodgeball. Yes. Red
but
River.
but like that's at 8, and at 10, complete independence. Like
Yeah.
they should be able to come home by themselves. So I think 8, they could stay in their house alone. I think this is what it is. They stay in their house alone for 30 minutes.
Actually,
At this age, right?
in Clark County, I don't know the laws completely.
I don't
but
either.
I do know that in Clark County that 8-year-old can stay at home for way longer than 30 minutes.
Well, and I think part of the book is tied to what we should do behaviorally, cognitively,
based on that.
and then what when we're getting into the internet access and everything, what the legislation should be globally. Like it should move from 13 to 16, and it should be actually age verified.
Yeah.
So imagine Jace,
Yes.
no access to Snapchat, Instagram,
little
any
man
of those
size,
things,
yeah.
any social media where
Yeah.
there's a contract involved.
Yes.
16 years old.
Yes.
And that's if you say they can.
Right.
Legally.
Well, and it should be something like, well, I mean, there's always a way around it, but like I just got my daughter
don't
a Venmo card,
Yeah.
right? And it was like I had to have access or whatever.
Yeah.
It should be something like that. But I mean, I do know like the Instagram and TikTok. Is it called? TikTok?
They don't even check your age at all.
No, but when they do, like
They don't verify
Sorry,
it.
Abby, I'm throwing you under the bus. So I didn't know that she had an Instagram until my friend said, hey, I just added your daughter on Instagram. Did you know? Oh my God, I lost my mind. Because her older stepsister and her were like, oh, let's put this together. And then they created a fake Facebook. Well, not fake. They created a Facebook with both their names.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you doing? You didn't ask if I could do this, or they just can do it.
Well, and they probably don't even think about, and it's hard because you're like, okay, you want to like reprimand them, but you really can't because we never sit them down and say, you can't do these things. You just give them a phone that has internet access to everything.
I gave her the phone.
Yeah.
And then her and her, they're just in their room together.
And it's just like, you just,
I didn't say.
it's like
"Don't
Christmas
do
Day
that."
every
Yeah.
day.
Here you go, Christmas
Oh,
Day.
this is cool. And
Yes.
my
You're
mom's
not
on
allowed to go
Instagram.
outside because I'm terrified of someone hurting you. But here's access
Yeah.
to everything that could possibly
And
hurt
within
you.
2 weeks, they're getting trolled.
Yes.
A lot
Yes.
that you can't control.
A lot that you can't control. Yeah. A lot that our minds couldn't even wrap around existing as adults, as parents.
Well, a lot of these scenarios, if you, as a full-grown adult, got trolled the way this 16-year-old or 13-year-old is getting trolled, you would be petrified out of your mind. Because it is stalking, right? And they don't even know what it is.
No.
And they may not feel that it's bad because it's attention.
Yes.
You know, this 14-year-old boy.
And then put it together with the
this
fact that
14-year-old boy is interested in them, and that 14-year-old boy is really a 55-year-old whoever.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard kids come up to me and say, I'm dating this person. Are you? Where'd you meet him? Online. Oh, wait, have you talked to them yet? Yeah, we talk all the time. I have to ask, how do you talk to them? I said, have you heard their voice yet? Well, no. Okay.
Yeah. Complete red flag.
I mean, I'm like, all right.
And they think it's normal because chances are
it is normal.
5 of their friends have the same scenario.
It is normal for them.
It's, you almost, this is only a joke, but you almost want to bring back the pen pals with the prison mates. Complete Grease moment.
Well,
but it's like, it's the same thing.
You're allowing a pen pal with someone that might be of that behavior.
Right, yeah.
With your child and not even knowing.
And, you know, they start, you know, what scared me were all the scenarios in this book about behavior that within weeks, the amount of teenage boys that are getting pictures from other girls because they basically, the word escapes me, but they like into the activities. Well, that's why, like, one of the things we talked about, or I want to talk about bullying, because in a scenario where you're using it for good and it's just social and it doesn't like hurt them at all, that does happen with some of these kids, right? But a large chunk of this is being used for hate and, you know, vicious language and bullying activities. And that's where you come in.
When you say this, you mean social media?
Social media, technology, WhatsApp messaging, Snapchat, you know.
Yeah.
They're already, by the time they have the phone, they're on the platforms because all of their friends are. And if they misstep, then it's sort of like the Mean Girls paradigm, right? The burn book is online.
That's what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. So in growing up, there was a burn book, right? Just being passed around, and you answer and you're like, why am I, I'm 11 years old, and they passed, what is this? Have you ever, wild stuff that I didn't even understand. I signed my name to this. But now that stuff is online for the world.
Well, and it's all in the comments. So if they don't filter themselves and don't have that shot, and you know, I mean, come on, what teenage human being doesn't go through a weight phase?
Yes. Yeah.
Boy or girl, right? And then they're posting online and they can get eviscerated. And like, you know, you're in a high school with 2,000 other people, and for some godly reason, they're all friends with each other on these social media platforms.
Well, I don't know them, but I'm on, like, they're whatever.
And like immediately you have the bullies, you know, the cliques and the whatever, and it's just like she doesn't have to tell me, but 100,000%. She deals with this every single day. Her. And every single professional in every single high school and middle school, probably. Mm-hmm. So I don't even know how you risk mitigate that.
You mean as a society, or you mean as a mental health professional in a school?
I mean, as a district, like as a school system.
So, I mean, we can't really circumnavigate that, but I mean, I'm lucky enough at my work that I work with a partner. She's a team and family advocate. So she takes on a lot of that heat, and she's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant at this, but she combats that daily, where it's mostly, we call it peer relationship issues. right? But it will stem from the social media,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids are like, I'll show you what she said on this and that. And
Well, in an environment where they're locking up their phones this school year, right?
yes, this year
So,
we're
so,
we're just
so
lock them up.
district-wide, all the electronic. I mean, they're still trying to navigate around elements of it, like with burner phones and like the
Yeah.
like. I've heard.
Measure, you put that in the
Yeah, your kids are gonna get a burner phone, and
from Shein. They're gonna
they're
get
gonna
them.
get the burner phone, and they're gonna
Timu,
put the
that's where they're
burner
getting them.
phone in because all it has to do is power on. So they're finding ways around it. So I mean, great for the ingenuity, but they're addicted. They're literally addicted to
I
these
was going to
things.
say that as you were talking. So the thing that you and I didn't have to worry about, a burn book or anything like that, but the dopamine rush from getting that like, we didn't have that. So
Mm-mm.
our reward system was not being lit up like a Christmas tree the way
Mm-mm.
that our teenagers are. Like you open that up, and if you don't have the likes, and if you don't have this or the comments, amygdala never underwent that fire.
No,
And
we wrote
theirs,
notes.
yeah, we wrote notes.
We wrote notes, and
Yeah.
we had awkward hugs, and we
Yeah.
talked to our friends
Oh my gosh,
about,
and that's the
you
thing.
know,
There's not a lot of in-person stuff. Like when you said hugs, hugs elicit oxytocin in our brain and also elicit bonding with other human beings, which is what we were always meant to do. We're a communicative animal. We were always meant to connect
yeah.
socially. Part of, looking at each other's eyes helps us bond with each other. Our mirror neurons say, oh, are they doing what I'm doing? Are they matching me? And this is how we identify if someone connects with us.
Yeah. This
We
is
don't
going to
have
sound
this online.
this sounds creepy. It's not at all. It's not meant this way. And I have the approval of all the parents involved. But like all the teenagers, none of them know how to hug. They're all like, Noah, like they all like they don't know how to. It's that in real life, IRL, like
In real
it's
life.
like they get
Feel
very
uncomfortable
weird
in
about
real
it.
life. Yeah. They haven't had a lot of
I felt like a
social
cool kid
interaction.
there for a second, IRL. But the bullying is just
So, and to your point, IRL, right? And so it makes it easier to bully someone online. And there's this sense of autonomy, and there's this sense of, oh, I can say this because the person's not in front of me. I don't see them. I don't see the effect that I have on them.
I don't know them.
I don't know them. It doesn't matter. And I feel puffed up because I'm getting all these likes and these comments. Or if I'm, buddying up with somebody and they're watching me do this. Yeah, the bullying can be very vicious online.
Now, okay, so let's run through this. I was bullied. My stomach, I'm hungry.
Stomach
I
right
was
now.
in the 6th grade, and so sort of, I'll just say that it wasn't good,
Yeah.
and I never talked about it because when I was going up through, if you got bullied, you never.
Yeah.
It's sort of like you're never allowed to be a snitch, you know. It was terminology, and you just took it and you ran. You either got beat up, or you ran for cover, or you got away from the situation, or you ended up growing out of it when the 7th grade rolled around, and hopefully you got different classes or what have you, right? And so I'm only now like processing it from then,
Yeah.
and it's because you block it, you shield it, you push it to the side, right? What do they do today? What do kids do today? Their bully is public, and their parents still don't know.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. Their parents still don't know.
So, I would have had to have had like a friend group that I could like, sit within, like we figured out the dynamics of how to, do that. Like, I don't know, like what, like, are they just alone on an island?
No, I love that's, and as you're saying that, I'm trying to process like, what do I see in the school that I'm at? And I like to look at things a little more hopefully. And I have seen situations where the students today, the teens today, do have knowledge, like I told you. And some will say, yeah, that's not cool, or that's just not funny, if they see it in a classroom. The online thing, that's when the little bit of, like it gets, what am I doing? Because they don't know how to have a hard time with a hard time. And they're like, oh my gosh, this person said this about me. What do I do? And I guess.
But are the outskirt people? So you have it's an interesting dynamic, right? You have the person doing the bullying, right? The attacker.
The attack.
Then you have the victim.
Yeah.
right? So you're experiencing the victim and how they're not coping with the attack, right? But everyone that's witnessing it, do they just ignore it? Like, is it just the level of anxiety that the victim is feeling? The people around, are they just like, ignore, move on? Like, is it so normalized that it's not that big of a deal because everyone gets attacked?
That's a good question.
But, it's like this scenario is
Yeah.
bad. The attacker may or may not even know the person.
Yeah.
So, like, is there even real energy?
Right.
Like, they're just doing it for attention.
Yeah.
The victim is like in the center of the hurricane,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Trying to get out.
Yeah.
But then you have all the witnesses.
That are trying to, I don't want to get messy.
Yeah.
I don't want to get messy.
Yeah. Just like ignore it. Like, it's sort of like it's the person that gets beat up in the, like when there was a fight at school, normally people would get involved in breaking up the fight.
But not with phones. With phones, they're recording the fight and they don't want to get involved.
Right. The fight's happening online.
I think you and I would have been like, there's a fight going on. Every generation, I don't know, every teenager.
No, like I don't even.
know.
I think they just move on, right? And hey, don't look at me. Don't look this way. Don't attack this way. So I don't know. There's a secondary victim, which is all the witnesses.
You think the witnesses are a victim?
Because they're being educated on what to do next. What do I need to do in order not to be attacked?
How do I keep myself from that situation and believing that couldn't happen to me? How do I cut that off?
So if you're a girl and you're being attacked because of a weight issue, right? Every new picture that I take now as a teenage girl is going to be perfectly filtered, skinny, perfect, curated, so that I will not experience that same level of attack. And now I've gotten a license that if I see something, then I should say something too, because then I'll be liked or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like the bullying is a training session for other bullies. I'm getting myself confused right now, but it's it's like, it's a training program for future bad behavior.
Yeah, but we call it something else, right? Where someone that's like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. And so I'm just learning. And then,
Well, and they don't have the level of agency that an adult has. If I don't like something in my Facebook feed, I just like ignore that person or
and
unfriend.
The problem as a teenager with that is if I ignore that person one, we're learning cutoff behavior, but two, I can't leave this community. This is my teenage community. I'm trying to learn who I am. I'm trying to learn what tribe I belong to. So I can't just turn off all these people because then I'm not in, right? And so that's, And that is the conundrum of being a teenager.
Sounds like prison. Well, I mean, that's why he named it the anxious generation, is like, it's a vicious feedback cycle of like anxious. So I think there's some like, okay, so if we have kids and we give them free play so that they have a better baseline, and we give them more freedom, even though that scares the crap out of us through these hurdle ages. But I think the fundamentals at the end of the book are society has to change. Yeah. Legislation has to change.
Well, and so to put hope into that, because I like to be hopeful, because I don't want to be like, ugh, there's no way we can.
There's hope here.
There's
just
hope
like
here.
I think part of the processing is like, well, okay, well, what can we all do?
I think in that book it's brought up at the beginning that like teens and younger generation used to be targeted to buy cigarettes, or brought up the idea that there used to be like those vending machines where you'd put in the coins and you'd pop out, so anyone could buy those cigarettes.
So I can smoke at 12 or whatever.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's right. Those cigarette machines don't exist anymore. You have to go there. You have to buy it from someone. You have to be 18. And so it holds the society accountable. Mm-hmm. So there has to be change where we hold our society accountable for the fact that the social media and the free access to technology is harmful to our children.
Okay. So Apple's a $3 trillion company. Mm-hmm. Meta, the money.
Well, so is the cigarette industry. It took a very long time and a lot of people, a lot of heartache.
Yeah,
the only thing that we can do is be consistent.
Okay, devil's advocate. Okay. What do you do so say we backtrack this, right? Say this becomes a mandatory thing tomorrow. where your 10-year-old has to get expunged from all social media.
That poor little guy is going to have withdrawal symptoms forever.
To,
That's it, just 2 weeks.
honestly, and
My
that
little
was
man.
one of the
Okay.
interesting things is there were a variety of scenarios in the book where teenagers were actually pulled off of these sites because of horrible scenarios where they had to like do a reset.
Yeah.
Those kids returned to normal within a very short amount of
Short period
time.
of time.
Now, if all parents had to do it,
Yeah.
then it's easier for the kids because then they don't care because the rules apply to everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
It's so important.
So that's why I think going into this school year, everyone was all up in arms about locking up the phones in the school. But
And a huge
early indications are that everyone's thriving with it,
That's right.
except for some of these bad actors that are doing the burner phones and
yes.
still
But it is
communicating on their
true.
watches or what have you.
Yes, if I disconnect from technology, then it just shows what we've learned is that we do so much better in our mental health. And our teenagers or our young kids, they'll return back to normal or what we believe is normal. And they won't have these, behaviors that are, I say aggressive, but that's not the right word, but combative, or they become the lawyer or the attitude. They diminish when you take away these technologies. That's what, people are
Because their
finding.
focus gets
Well, and their brain is not being, like I said, lit up
inundated.
like a Christmas tree.
The notifications.
Speaking of notifications. But the notifications aren't just like getting their brain to do. And they're able to focus on life in a, real time moment to moment to moment. Not just
Yeah. Well, okay, great. If we solve it for the school.
we're solved. We solved the world. Okay.
Okay, but by the minute they're, they grab their phone out of the locker and head to the bus, they're like,
It's like adding the drug
it's like,
again.
I want to write an article on this, but I can't get it out. But I'll verbalize it. When I go to the gym, everyone's like this and no one looks happy.
No.
Like there's no happiness happening
The
at the gym.
happiness
The
quotient
happiness is like
down.
when these bros, like these teenage bros, are just going to the gym and they're just chatting with each other.
Yeah.
But they're also got one earphone in, and I'm hoping that they're listening to the same music or whatever.
I can't. That would. Oh my gosh, that would blow my mind because both my kids do that. I'm like, and I can't see it. Both my kids' hair is long, and I'm like,
they have an ear in.
Oh, they've got it in, and I'm like, what? And I'm talking to them, and I don't really get a response. I'm like, what do you? Are
they on the phone or are they?
No, they're listening to YouTube or music. My daughter's usually listening to true crime podcast is what she's usually listening to. So my daughter and my son.
That's reading?
Well, no, that's not reading. I'm talking about they're reading online, comments. They're reading comments.
Oh,
they're reading little things that people put on Instagram, or they're reading words, but they're not reading.
They're not reading literature.
Or they're like, oh my gosh, what is narcissism? And and
now
whatever
I'm an expert.
Google says. But so my daughter, and this is where the disconnect would be for technology, she uses it as an ADHDer. She doesn't like the way I say ADHD. But my daughter's been diagnosed with ADD, and she actually performs better on like homework if she's got something in. And so this is a technique that she has used. Now, I wouldn't want my son doing it. He does not have ADHD or ADD. But
boy and focuses.
I know, little man does not, and he doesn't have ADD, but does he have focus issues? Yes.
Because he's a boy.
And because I'm allowed the technology.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to wrap up with a wild question. If you had to back off in your house, potentially even with the 16, like say we went really strict.
Really strict.
Meaning 18.
18, you can't have a phone until you're
18, no internet access.
Internet access.
Yeah, let's just go wild with it.
Odd, I'm going to have withdrawals. Okay.
So.
Does this include Netflix and stuff?
On a phone?
Okay, on a phone.
No
phone. Internet access on a phone.
Let's even go like the house has to go to flip phones.
The house has to go to flip phones.
If you're not over the age of 18.
Okay.
And the only way you can access the internet through research, which is a highly like just let's go super strict with it. I don't have to
They have to
like tell you.
dial up.
Yeah, like it's like parental controls, and it's just like just like the library. You have to go to the library.
Do we have microfiche?
Like I don't need like I think in a scenario where everyone was doing it, would the kids handle it?
If everyone was doing
Like
it,
just
yes.
think your experience with all kids were
If we all did it, if we were all doing it, can we handle it? Yes. Species.
yeah.
We can handle so much.
Yeah, I think so
The
too.
problem is that what technology is, how hedonistic it is, and how it lights up our brain like a Christmas tree, and is that not everyone is doing it. It's addictive. So
We
yes,
have-
could we do
well,
it? I believe we could.
fundamentally we have addicts
Yeah.
that
We're
are
creating
controlling the legislature. I feel like there's a wall here. You know,
Yeah.
there's some fundamental, like when you
Yeah.
read this book and I'm sure there's a bunch of other commentary out there in the world related to what should happen with the legislation, child rearing, and what we should be doing.
Absolutely.
It all sounds great on paper.
Yeah.
I think where the wall,
The wall.
all on various levels of addicted to it,
And also, to be devil's advocate, the world is moving in a digital, right? It's moving in a technological advancement. I mean, AI, Chat GPT. Oh my gosh!
hey,
Like
you
our
know what I
whole
love
world.
about it
So
is
if we don't-
let the Chat GPT do the research for me.
Yes, but then you read the research. So if we don't continue to progress and understand it, we will fall behind.
Yeah.
So you're right. I think there's got to be a marrying between the two, but an understanding how the brain works is going to be the most important thing. How does the brain work? How do we develop as humans? How do we want to develop as humans? That's going to be what's important.
I agree. And I don't think we have all the answers.
No.
So I think we're sort of taking the backtrack approach to legislation and child rearing. Like, hey, there are some fundamentally good things about how it was done.
Yeah.
Bringing that in so that it's going to be the next round. You know, it's almost the 15-year-olds to 25-year-olds now.
Yeah.
There's damage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That comment's not going to go over well, but
Well,
there's nothing to be done, right? Like, how can you insinuate for an 18-year-old now so that they can fundamentally learn some of these coping mechanisms that they may not have had access to when they were 7, 8, 9, 10?
I think the same way that I would that someone walks into my private practice who's 50 years old and says, hey, I never had access to this before. I'd say, great, let's get started.
That's good. Okay. Therapy. Maybe I should go to school.
But no, and that's the thing is that neuroplasticity, the ability that we have as humans, are things ingrained? Are there neural pathways that are already set? Absolutely. But we do know that we're able to change.
So it's not hopeless
No.
for the youth of today, young
Is it
adults
hard?
of today.
Is it up a mountain? Yes. Are we going to change? Is everybody on board with this? Like you said, it's got to be a connected effort. Yeah. I'm never of the mind that it's not hopeful. Yeah.
I agree. But I think education now, especially for parents that are rearing kids that have teenagers, I think, if anything, a nice little, hey, what's on your phone?
Mindful, and to your point, the kids that are little.
Without helicoptering.
Without helicoptering. But if you think about it, the teens that are now, when they become parents, they know. They're like, I was on that phone, and now that I know what I know as an adult, I am definitely going to ask my child, hey, what's on your phone? What are the monitors that I need to
I think you have a 17-year-old today that will probably not give these things to their kids.
They may not. We may see that backlash.
Yeah, I think part of this is that we're seeing this whole like sort of retro vibe that's entering teenage world where they want the flip phones. Yeah. And they want like old photography, old cameras and what have you.
I actually saw that on a show, Hacks.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the main characters who I just absolutely love, and I forget her name right now, but she's like, oh, I made all these bad decisions. I see how my decisions have affected other people and myself. I'm doing a flip phone, no more smartphone. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? Because yes, there's going to be some people that are like, nope, just a flip phone. And there's going to be some backlash.
Yeah. I think Oliver would love a flip phone.
Well, they're fun.
Yeah, and they're just like, just program it with some numbers.
Do you remember those things called sidekicks?
Yeah.
Flip.
Yeah.
I
I'm a
don't
little
know.
older
Or a
for a sec.
BlackBerry. How about a Blackberry?
Oh,
Where's the
Blackberry.
Blackberry?
Bring black.
Bring them
My
back.
Blackberry was blue, so I call it a blueberry.
A
But
blueberry. Okay.
bring back the blueberries.
Bring them back.
Well, thank you
Yeah, thank you.
for the time. I know we could just go on and on and on and
Forever,
on and
yes.
on around this. Pick up the book, read at your leisure. The audiobook took, I don't know, 3 or 4 days for people that do audiobooks.
I'm trying to remember. It was like 14 hours or something around there. But
Yes.
it wasn't the longest book that I've read, but it was very informational. So yeah,
Yes.
take a look.
Totally digestible.
Current information.
A lot to ponder and think about and figure out how you can, take that level of awareness and do something with it.
Yeah.
And but I think we're a bit over time today.
We're over time. Sorry.
But and my stomach tells me we need tacos.
We're gonna have tacos. So I hope you guys eat
thanks
too.
everyone for tuning in and experiencing our first live video
Yay.
podcast.
We're gonna learn a lot. There's gonna be a lot of
That's
things
the whole
we're
thing
gonna
about
learn.
learning. This is not going to be perfect. It
We're
was
gonna
not
chat
perfect.
about it over tacos.
And we'll chat about it over tacos. Nice. Have a great